Monday, December 2nd, 2013. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. We're back tonight. We're talking about that Penny Arcade job posting.
Rim's idea.
Let's do this. Now, I should note, we're going to try to avoid talking about any of the non-tech aspects of it.
Because they're obvious.
Yeah, they're obvious. The ones that aren't obvious.
You shouldn't work zillion hours a week.
Yeah, well, the only exception would be if work is also life, but...
That's a sad person.
Well, what if my job, Scott, is to hang out on the beach and relax?
That
and
is my job.
I'm putting in extra hours for that job.
I'm going to murder you and take your job.
Yeah. So, but in that case...
Or you're going to put in a good word for me, and I'll get hired, and you'll get a signing bonus.
I mean, I spent a lot of late nights working on Geeknights when I could have been asleep. Back in the day when it would take us a couple hours to actually put a show together after we recorded it. But I digress. That's in the second part of the show. But yeah, I was in Istanbul all last week. Ironically in Turkey over Thanksgiving, so I did not have any turkey.
Is that really ironic?
Nah, it's ironic. That's why I said ironic with an ironic lilt, perhaps.
Sure.
But everyone I talked to who knew that I was going to be in Turkey over Thanksgiving had to basically make some observation along those lines of, you're going to be in Turkey instead of
having been
Turkey.
to Turkey, what, 3 times now?
More than that.
I mean, the Turkish people know that the name of their country in English is the name of a bird.
So.
Right? They must know that.
They do.
And what do they think about that?
They don't think about it.
Okay.
They do eat turkeys on Christmas, which they celebrate, even though they're mostly Muslim.
What do they call a turkey?
I don't know, because everyone I do business with...
What is the Arabic word for turkey?
So they don't speak Arabic.
I thought they speak Arabic.
They speak Turkish.
I didn't know Turkish was a different language.
Wow.
How is it different?
It's completely different. It's more based on Greek than it is based on anything else.
I did not know this.
Wow, really?
Okay.
You listen to 12 Byzantine rulers, you don't...
How much do you think I remember? I can't even remember. I can't remember anything.
All right, so a few highlights then. I saw the chain, as in that chain from that podcast, the one that hung across the Bosphorus that kept the Ottomans at bay until they eventually took the tower and took it down. The chain is just there in the museum. And I think the funniest thing was I saw all these Egyptian artifacts, and for a second I'm like, what? Why is there so much Egypt? Oh, right. Romans conquered Egypt. Greeks conquered Egypt. This is all pillage.
Anthony and Cleopatra?
Yeah, and I think older stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the artifacts that Rome and parts of Rome have laying around, like in their museums today, are things that the Romans themselves looted from places they conquered more than 1,000 years ago. These are things that were conquered, taken, looted, and put in museums before so-called Jesus wasn't born. I just find that awesome and interesting. But no, my trouble with Turkey is that I would like to learn Turkish because I go there enough and the business is big enough.
But they mostly speak English.
Well, everyone in the industry I engage with speaks English pretty well, to very well, to better than a lot of Americans.
Hello, my friend. How are
and
you?
A lot of people in the street, at least in the urban centers, also speak English. So as a result, I don't have any chance to really use...
Do they speak English even to each other, or only they are able to speak English but don't speak it as their primary language?
They will never speak English to each other.
Okay.
But they speak it very well when they're speaking with me or when I'm in the room. But all the books I can find to teach myself Turkish are ancient and teach like Turkish from the 1920s like no one speaks
Why
it
don't
today.
you get rip off Rosetta Stone?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to pirate Rosetta Stone.
Why don't you do the thing that Emily does with the Skype and with the Turkish person?
Because that service did not have Turkish.
Really?
There are not a lot of English to Turkish language resources because there's not a lot of interest in the English-speaking world in learning Turkish, sadly.
Why don't you find the person who is like translating Turkish books or something and ask them if there's something you can do?
Yeah, I'll just pay them to come over and teach me Turkish.
No, I mean, like, go to the Turkish bookstore, right, and find, like, the most popular fucking book, right? And it's probably going to have an English translation. Look up in the credits who did the translation, and then find the person on the internet and call them.
Well, I think I'm going to probably start by pirating Rosetta Stone, and I'm still doing some research. I found a couple of books. The problem is the books are
Why don't you look at the person in the credits of the Turkish Rosetta Stone who made it?
Maybe. those people may or
They'll
may
probably just tell you to use Turkish Rosetta Stone, but still.
But I only learn words related to food and coffee because they have coffee and tea and stuff like that constantly. It's awesome.
Usually the first thing people learn are when they're learning a new language late in life is swear words.
Yeah.
But you probably haven't learned any.
Nope, I haven't learned any. I've overheard, I think, what
You
were a
can't
few
even
swear
say
words.
fuck you in Turkish.
Nope. I can order black Turkish coffee by getting sade coffee.
Okay.
As opposed to orto coffee, which is Turkish coffee with a little bit of sugar in it. And the word for tea is chai.
Oh, that's a hard word.
It's spelled differently. It's spelled C-A-Y. But I can read Turkish. I can read Turkish words and know how to pronounce them, which actually took me a little while to figure out.
I could do that with Hebrew when I was like in kindergarten.
They use a lot of diacritics, like way more than I'm used to, and they have a much bigger impact on the words. Like, also, the most vexing thing is that there's I with a dot and without a dot, and they're different. So there can be an uppercase I with a dot and uppercase I without a dot.
All right.
Yeah, that also causes problems in Java and other languages if you don't handle it properly. Because there's a lowercase I with the dot, so it gets uppercased into an uppercase dotted I that doesn't display in most Western character sets, thus
Why isn't
problems.
your text editor UTF-8?
Yeah, but even then, which character? If you type an I that's a lowercase I in English, it'll have the dot by default. So if you take that in Turkish and then uppercase it, it'll still have the dot. But you don't want the dotted uppercase I in that case, most likely. You want the non-dotted uppercase I, especially if it's English just being typed in Turkish. There's also issues with passwords and hashes.
That's the problem is someone on a Turkish keyboard put in their Turkish lowercase I when they meant to put in an English lowercase I.
Yep, or the other way around. You put an English lowercase I that gets upcased to a uppercase I with a dot, which doesn't exist in English.
It's a different letter, right? You just pretend it like that lowercase Turkish I.
But this is why
like
there's the problem. In English,
big,
we have lowercase I with a dot
and
uppercase I without a dot. So we have like half and half is our problem.
Anyway.
But yeah, that's how it was in Turkey. It was awesome. And the Lions won the Thanksgiving Day game for the first time in my life that I can remember that I cared.
Doesn't matter.
Matters a lot.
Doesn't matter.
Matters a lot. If you've ever lived in Detroit, it matters a lot.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, so we got some news. Got news. We're back. It's Geeknights news.
I think I closed my tab with my news. Let me remember what it was.
All right, so RMS, as in Richard Stallman.
Why are we talking about him?
Has decided that
he's the opposite of relevant.
Has proven that Bitcoin has made it. And you know how we know Bitcoin has made it? Because Richard Stallman is calling for an anonymous alternative to Bitcoin.
Okay.
He doesn't tell anyone how, or
he doesn't know how.
Of course not. But basically, Bitcoin has become useful enough to where he is calling for an alternative to it because of its flaw. The flaw being that it's not actually anonymous, which is funny because most people who talk about Bitcoin seem to laud how anonymous it is, not knowing that it's actually the opposite of that. And the point of it is not that it's anonymous, but that it's intrinsic. This article, just if you want to see what Slashdot looked like in 1994, this article from today is basically Slashdot in 1994. It's got all the keywords: RMS, alternative to whatever hot technology thing is.
Is it a picture of Bill Gates' face with the Borg on it?
It's actually got a picture of a Bitcoin because they have a Bitcoin category because there's so many articles about Bitcoin. Now, maybe we do need an anonymous equivalent of Bitcoin because cash is increasingly difficult to use by tech nerdy people, and intrinsic currencies are useful for the segment of the population that can't use credit cards, aka teenagers who are increasingly spending a lot of money online and have no good way to do that. Anonymous ones would be good for the black market, the internet underground, buying drugs. Bitcoin is kind of good for that too, but you have to be technologically savvy. But no, my real news is that Amazon announced the kind of thing that's usually a I don't know, April Fool's joke.
I thought it was an April Fool's joke at first, or a parody.
And I had heard, I mean, there have been rumors about this for a long time. And I assume this is the kind of thing that you'd see on one of those TV shows back when they were like, What's New in Tech with Soledad O'Brien on TV back in the day, like Square whatever TV. But I forget what all those channels were called. But Amazon actually announced that they're going to have little drones that will deliver packages. And they actually have come a long way, and they've got working prototypes. Like, this is not as far away as people think it is.
I just see like two things I'm seeing really often lately, right? The one thing is where people like they misunderstand where technology currently is in both directions, right? It's like they'll underestimate what they're capable of doing right now realistically, and they'll also overestimate in different areas.
Case in point, Google Glass. People think it's like this real-world overlay device that shows you this heads-up display that fully fills your vision like a
people have no realistic understanding of what it actually does, right?
But then they don't realize that robot cars already work. Like, they already work.
Yep.
They exist. They work for real in real cities.
But and the thing is, in either direction, right, the over or underestimating, people have a completely unrealistic expectation about time frames as well, right? It's like when they underestimate, they think, the thing is actually way old. It's like, yeah, I've been doing that for like 100 years. Where have you been, right?
Yep.
And
well, like when Facebook came out, people are like, wow, this is the first thing like that ever. It's like, yeah, never mind ICQ and Orkut.
And then when they overestimate, it's like, they think it's going to be right around the corner. It's like, no, you're not, we've been talking.
Flying cars?
Right. It's like we've been talking about, it's like Google Glass, right? Yeah, it's here. Right? You're overestimating what it's capable of, but you think it's, even if you get that right, you think you're going to be capable of it like really soon. It's like, no, not anytime soon.
But
right?
at the same time, they really underestimate that what glass is
right.
pretty much already exists and
Basically,
will be out soon.
The whole world just has this, anyone who's not in technology has a completely wrong understanding of where we are at and what things can do. And including, right, this news story is the perfect example because even 60 Minutes, a very reputable news program, right, is acting all like this shit's like around the corner.
No, nerds were talking about this back when Amazon started.
Sure, but the other thing is like, when is this actually realistically? What day am I going to receive a package by Amazon by air like this? Five years minimum, more like 10.
I think this brings up the fundamental underlying point, and I'm glad that you went in this direction. The biggest problem in technology
But they have a news story like we're going to have this today just because we can theoretically...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the people are acting like this is some crazy thing. No, this technology has existed for a while. It's not new. Amazon's saying they're going to do it.
And then they go, oh my God, play gods. A package is going to fall on someone and kill them.
Yeah. But... It's the same thing as with robot cars. The technology exists today. It is not technologically infeasible to roll it out, assuming no concerns.
It might be economically infeasible to roll it out.
And it might even be economically feasible. In mass. You could
definitely
places.
Deliver one package for sure. No problem.
It would depend on where. This would be the most feasible in a place like New York City.
Sure.
Where it could just deliver to all these
It doesn't have to go
buildings.
very far, but there's a lot of people it can deliver to.
Exactly. And you could get to the places that are difficult to get delivery trucks to, etc.
But how are you going to prevent anyone from robbing it?
I'm not worried about that because those are the kinds of things.
I would just stand, look around for them, shoot them down, and take whatever they got. Especially, I would use my binoculars, a scope, and if it said Newegg, boom, yoink. If it's right, if it
because that hard drive will make it'll survive the descent.
Fireman person catching net.
I have a feeling that is, this is something you're doing, the thing that people on Slashdot, they do all the time. Whenever there's an article about, hey, we're going to make a subway that goes in space, the first comments are armchair engineers saying, but because of the whatever radiation, it couldn't actually work. It's like, dumb shits. If the engineers are working on it, they probably thought of the most low-hanging fruit dangers that you just thought of.
Go-Go 13 attack.
Yeah, you know what? If Go-Go 13 attacks it, it's fucked.
That's what I'm saying.
That's fine. If Go-Go 13 attacks a tank, tank's fucked.
That's what I'm saying.
But in terms of this, the biggest problem with technology today, in terms of rolling it out, is the gap between government regulation and technological availability.
And fear of people.
Yeah, but the fear of people kind of ties in. The technology exists today to do this. Amazon could start doing this on a small scale today. There is literally no technological limitation preventing them from doing so. Just like we could have robot cars.
It could be windy.
Driving. Well, then it doesn't go until the next day. So, yes, today or tomorrow.
So Chicago, you're never getting deliveries.
Well, then they do some sort of blimp thing instead where a blimp goes up, rides the wind, and then lands, and then someone just goes around later and picks up all the blimps like once a month.
I mean, delivering packages by air, military's been doing that for like as long as we've had planes.
Yep. You think the military doesn't already have drones that can deliver stuff?
Wooden crate with a parachute. Old invention.
If the military can deliver a Hellfire missile into someone's living room whenever they want via a drone, they can deliver a package with some hard drives and a USB cable.
Yep.
If they did it via missile, that'd be pretty cool.
Dude.
But seriously, the only reason we don't have limited trials of commercially available robot cars or things like this is simply that our government is at any level, on the local level, the national level, the federal level, state level, town level,
old people
100% incapable of even discussing these issues. Do you know how will New York City, as a specific example, even get to the point where anyone involved in our government even begins to understand how to go about regulating private drones using New York City's airspace?
They're still discussing whether to put like a traffic slowing curb in my neighborhood.
They're already fighting. They're already realizing that because of state laws, they can't reduce the speed limit to 20 miles an hour because there's state laws that prevent it. So we have a problem where increasingly, and I think this is going to happen more and more, within the next 10 years, we're going to hit a crisis point with this. Technology is advancing so fast that we will have things that are so
we should
obvious.
just start, I think that, right? And this is why what you see in Silicon Valley so much is these companies sort of jerkily, right, in most cases, just start deploying their technology in direct scoffing and violation of any laws and regulations.
Hey, Crunchyroll did that back in the day.
Right, exactly. Like Uber, they're just like, fuck your taxi laws, we're doing it. And they just do it. And it's like, what are you going to do? Stop us? And they do try to stop them.
Airbnb.
And then, by forcing the battle, that's the only way to actually make anything happen is by just starting to do it. So if I was Amazon, they have plenty of fucking money. If you got this shit to the point where it worked and you were ready to make it happen, just start doing it, right? Just do it and make the and force the government to discuss it and do something about it. Force them to shoot down your little drones or do whatever, because this is the only way you're actually going to be able to get it set up.
I'd go a little more subtle and a little more 80s movie villain. I would find a small town that really needed it. That really needed me.
The post office never goes there.
Yeah, like one of those small towns. And I would work with them and get them to pass all the local laws that would make it work and tell them, don't worry about federal and state bullshit because we got your back. And then just deploy in that town. And then as soon as there's trouble and the government gets involved, suddenly you've got a government fighting with you, not just individual people. And neighboring towns, there'll be people who want these things, and you could just dump lobbying money into Congress.
You think people would actually? The problem is that in the small town, no one will want them. You have to do it in the city where people actually.
You got to find the small city, like the Silicon Valley, like these little cities that have a bunch of tech workers.
Anyway.
Like Raleigh would be possibly a good place for something like that. A lot of tech workers, despite being a relatively small city on the grand scheme of things.
All right. News. So this isn't really news, right? It's just something that I always had troubles with, all right? I'm pretty good at setting up computers and whatnot.
Yep.
But mail servers. Nope. Nope.
The last time I set up a mail server, well, Scott and I tried to get squirrel mail working at RIT.
I did at some point.
It did. It technically worked.
Who knows if I was spamming or whatever, but...
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a website here at flirty.com, and it's how to set up a mail server on a new/Linux system. Step-by-step guide to install Postfix. Ubuntu plus Postfix plus Courier IMAP plus MySQL plus MFSDNew plus Spam Assassin plus ClamMF plus Sazzle plus TLS plus Roundcube plus Postgre. It tells you how to set up every single piece. I wish they would just give you a fucking CD where it was set up already, and when the CD turns on, you type in your domain, it gives you the MX records, you paste them, and you push go, and it's set up. That's what they should make, and maybe I can make that from these instructions.
Maybe, and then make it a virtual image and just put it out there.
Make it an AMI so you can just, boom, your email on Amazon.
With a little back door to where years from now, you can use it to take over all these networks.
Yeah, great. Take over your emails. But
No,
yeah.
seriously, I mean, your job at least is programming, so it's understandable that you would not have deep expertise on email server administration.
I can administer any other kind of service.
Yeah, my job was IT. My career was IT. My degree is in IT. I am no more capable of getting email servers working than Scott is.
I'm
Good
very capable if
fucking
I read
God.
these instructions.
Yeah, but the last time I set up email to work was at one of my capstone projects at RIT in System Administration 2. I had set up an email server, a Wins server, which already is starting to date me. So anyway, things of the day. Little video game thing of the day here. Scott was not aware of these differences.
I was not aware at all. Now I don't know what to do with my life.
I was aware of some of these.
Everything I knew is wrong. My worldview is shattered.
But not all of them. So there's a history of Japanese Nintendo games being way harder than the American equivalents because Japan has a
Final Fantasy IV.
Final Fantasy
2.
1.
Mega Man 2 having the easy mode, which doesn't exist.
Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah.
So
Every game.
pretty much, Japan had a very low opinion of the intelligence of the average American gamer. Not unfounded. They also had a very low opinion
Or
of
was it
the-
a self-fulfilling prophecy? Maybe if they had given us the real Mario 3 and such, then we would be better at games.
Maybe. But at the same time, maybe they rightfully assumed that Americans would give up in frustration rather than rising to the challenge. I don't know, because I played Final Fantasy IV-J, and that game is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is a complete enumeration, to the best of my knowledge, of all the differences between the United States release and the Japanese release of Super Mario Bros. 3.
I thought they were identical.
Yeah, some of the differences are subtle. Like, there's some graphical changes, like the throne rooms are just different for no reason.
Probably for memory reasons. It's an NES, you know.
There's a door that's in a different place because it's harder if the door is in that place in Japanese.
Only slightly.
And
I wouldn't die there.
in American Mario 3, if you have, say, the Fire Flower and you get hit, you turn into Big Mario. If you get hit again, turn into Small Mario. Get hit again, you die. In Japanese Mario 3, just like every other Mario, if you're Fire Flower and you get hit, Small Mario. Hit again, dead.
Is Super Mario World different between Japan and US?
I'm not sure. I don't know, actually.
Okay.
I only knew about Mario 3 because of Nintendo Power features and a lot of research as a kid.
Okay.
But there were some things like this crazy glitch I did not know about with the fourth warp whistle.
Yeah, that I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah. It's weird that they changed like that end too. Like maybe they just realized, the end of this, because level 5 was kind of glitchy in general. You get the impression that it was the rushed one and they cut a lot out at the last minute. And I feel like,
Skyworld?
yeah.
I don't know.
Skyworld had the most weird glitches. At Kuribo's shoe just kind of hanging out.
That doesn't sound like something that you just sort of, spit out quickly, right? They put a lot of work in a Kuribo shoe. And also that tower where you go up and down.
They did, but I feel like because
Sky
that was
Tower.
Skyworld always felt kind of different from all the other parts of Mario 3. Anyway, we can talk about that on a Tuesday.
Yeah. All right, so another thing of the day. This is just a YouTube channel, not a specific YouTube video. I found out about this. There's a YouTube channel, KBS World TV. And KBS is just a Korean TV station. It's one of the biggest ones. And they just put a whole bunch of shit on YouTube with subtitles, legit. Totally legit, full HD, whatever.
Ooh.
Like constantly. Like you can just watch their dramas, you can watch it, whatever. It's just all on there. And it's like, whoa, how come like other TV channels don't do this? How come it's like, yeah, obviously, the Koreans pretty good at spreading their culture on the internet. It's better than the other countries. But, how come there isn't like, I don't know, the French broadcast network putting their shows up on, and the BBC does it with their stupid iPlayer you can only watch if you have a VPN or live there or what, right? It's like everyone is getting this wrong. There is a real TV station getting it right. I hope other people follow suit, because if you look, even the unpopular videos they post are getting like hundreds of thousands of views. It is not unpopular. All right, so I want to see a day where pretty much just every TV station just puts all their shows on YouTube with subtitles to spread them around the world. So that way
perhaps with a pre-funding model, like what funded Bee and Puppycat.
Yeah, so you don't need some shady fucking fan subbers posting it on weird websites and whatnot. They just post legit.
So yeah, in the meta moment, the book club book is
Aidoru by William Gibson.
now. I started reading it again because I had a bunch of long flights.
I didn't.
Will I finish it again and then start reading further?
I have a week
Captain Nice
vacation.
Guy
I have a
Penis
week
Adventures?
vacation between Christmas and New Year's. That's my time.
So, I started reading it. I read just like the first chapter, and with all the cyberpunk jargon and awesome, just stereotypical, cliched cyberpunk crap that happens in the beginning, it's easy to forget that it wasn't cliche when this book was written, guys. This book was written in 1996.
Yep.
1996. In 1996, upgraded to a 33.6 kbps modem.
I was a freshman in high school. I was maybe like 14 years old.
The ideas in books like this were not common. It's one of those situations where something seems cliche and you forget that it came about before that thing was cliche. This book is kind of awesome, so I actually am really looking forward to reading the rest of it again.
Yep. Okay, other things. MagFest. Go to
MagFest, we're going to be there. I don't know if we're allowed to say it or not, but I'll at least say that we're going to be on 3 panels at MagFest, 2 of which we can't talk about yet. Scott and I are splitting up. We're actually 4 panels total. Scott and I are going to split up and each sit on a different panel about a different topic. I think Scott's on something about video game controllers, and I'm on something about privacy in games. And we're both going to be on one about games of the future, like gaming 30 years from now. Mm-hmm. Kind of like Y+30, but without any trademark infringement whatsoever on that name. And we're going to be doing a longer, harder version of bad games that we did at PAX. We have an extra 30 minutes, so prepare yourself. I got to find more cartridges of ET before we get there.
They're easy to get.
MagFest is awesome. You should all be there. It is the only convention better than it for gaming is PAX.
Yep. What else is there? Not much. It's December. It's the holidays in the United States and most of the world. It's also really cold in the United States at this time of year, in the New York northern parts where we live. So shows may be spotty until January, in which point shows have been historically steady.
Yep. Usually we kind of fade around the holidays, and then we appear with crazy stories and bullshit from when we were gone.
Between January up to March, April, which is PAX East Anime Boston time.
I mean, we're going to come back from MagFest and the holidays and New Year's and everything in January. And then we're going to have all the videos of our lectures from MagFest. We're going to have all the stories from MagFest. We're going to have all our holiday crap. We're going to come out strong again, but there's going to be a time soon where it's going to be slim pickings.
Anyway,
for you Geeknights fans,
you should go to our website, frontrowcrew.com.
You should go to our awesome forum, which is newly hosted on Vanilla with the new version of Vanilla.
And you should go to all our places like YouTube and shit.
Yes, the more you spread around our YouTube videos, the faster we will continue to produce Geeknights Present Shoujo Kakame Utena.
And all our Twitters.
I don't think Scott wants to do any more of them, but I am going to record my own episode of another Radio Free Equestria because unless Scott wants to.
Not really.
Really? Did you watch all 3 episodes of the new season?
Yes.
So the Ghost and Mr. Chicken episode where they get scared with the pipe organ?
Yes.
Okay. So I noticed something.
Yeah.
When she drinks that potion that gives her magical memories, the logo on that potion is the logo on another bad thing from before. And when she casts the spell to make it work, it's the same bad magic that Sombra used and that she used when she was interacting with Sombra's stuff. Yeah. I could do a show on that if you wanted to do a show on that.
That's the whole show. You just did it.
Yeah, but I didn't go in detail.
There's not much else to say.
I got some theories.
Okay.
All right, listeners, do you want us to do it or not?
Yeah, the people who are pony fans are going to say yes, please, and everyone else is not going to say anything.
I don't know. I'll say this because
no one's going to say no, don't do that because they just won't watch it if you do it if they don't care.
No, people have said no, don't do that.
Okay.
All I have to say is Ponies is back, and you know what? After the most recent episode, it's holding on. I can just pretend that Equestria Girls was never made.
Yeah, I mean, it's not awful. It's just not It's
Well,
not,
I
it's
don't-
not like I
episode-
want to watch it so badly, like I want to watch South Park so badly on Wednesday.
Or Adventure Time.
I don't
Adventure Time.
Adventure Time I want to watch more badly than Ponies, but not
Well,
super
Adventure Time is
badly.
doing the things that if Ponies did similar kinds of things, they'd be both A-tier shows.
Right. The only thing I really want to watch badly is Kill La Kill.
Yeah. Well,
Did you watch the newest episode?
No, I did not.
Oh,
But I am caught up on
Oh.
Adventure Time.
okay.
James?
Yeah, me too. I saw James.
Yeah. I like this.
James is a good guy.
I like how both Ponies and Adventure Time have had the direct continuity episodes.
Do you
leading
notice
into
James
episodes.
had the Brack voice actor?
Notice how James had a red shirt on, thus proving that Peebs planned him to be what he was from the beginning.
What?
She brought him to be used for that purpose if things went wrong.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
I would do Radio Free Ooh, but Scott doesn't want
You can do your own Radio Free Ooh.
to. Maybe I will.
Do it with Judy Sue.
Actually, yeah. Maybe I should. Judith, I know you listen to Geeknights.
What? Why? You got something better to do.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Radio Free Ooh.
Okay.
Anyway, so there is a little bit of a brouhaha on the internet, a
This is all you.
little bit of hubbub about a job posting from one Penny Arcade Incorporated. I don't want to talk about the social side of this
Because it's obvious.
I don't want to talk about the all the issues except the actual job posting because a lot of the complaints. Here's the deal. They posted a pretty accurate job posting for the kind of tech guy they wanted.
Because the tech guy they have is leaving to do something else.
So the internet went crazy about it, and about a third of the people, maybe half the people who were complaining about this, were complaining about the wrong thing. And the people who were complaining in the manner that we're about to talk about, there's a reason those people do not have high-paying jobs. So a complaint. Well, here, I'm going to read the job posting.
Well, I
not
mean,
the whole
think about it, a
thing.
lot of people are complaining simply because they're Penny Arcade haters. They'll hate on anything Penny Arcade does ever. They'll find a reason to make it like a huge, catastrophe where it's like this 10,000 job postings just like this every day about companies you don't care about, so you're not making a hullabaloo.
Now, there have been, don't get us wrong, there are Penny Arcade catastrophes, Mike Krahulik.
Like this one also.
Yeah, but
asking someone to work a zillion hours is awful. The end.
well, I'm not sure how many hours they actually work.
The guy said there was a posting by the guy who had the
Oh,
job.
I have that post up. I read that.
He said, basically you can't go anywhere because you're on call
There's two
24/7
separate
and
things.
you're the only guy.
There's two separate things. There's the on-call thing, and then there's the actual working hours thing. Because not to disparage him, but based on reading that and seeing just kind of how this all evolved, I don't think, other than the on-call aspect, the amount of work it would take to do what they need is maybe 20 hours of work a week.
Right,
tops.
but if you work at Penny Arcade, who's going to make you stay there for a zillion hours a week? And it'll look down on you if you leave at 5 every day.
Maybe not. Maybe what if you got everything? What if you came to the office and just fucking hung out and played games because there was no work to do because you did it all?
Who would fire you?
Maybe. I don't know. If he's smart,
He'd
he wouldn't.
definitely give you a talking to. I don't know.
No, because that's one of the biggest problems with tech is you know what? It's the same thing that managers of terrible fast food jobs will say. You'll hear this phrase a lot. They'll say, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Meaning they're paying you for your time. So if you finish all the work, it's your responsibility to find more work to do and to work more because otherwise, why are they paying you?
Why are you? Maybe you should have hired me for half the time that you hired me for. It's
Ah,
not
but-
my fault that you mishired me.
But the problem is they'll hire you for half the time, but then pay you half as much, and then you don't have enough money to live. We kind of have this messed up situation.
Pay me more per hour, and then
We have this messed up situation in America.
Right, and this is
where
why-
you're expected to have a full-time job of 40
and
to
this
50
has
hours
nothing
a
to do with
week.
technology, which is why we're not talking about this part. We're talking about the technology part.
Yeah, but I feel you itching to talk about it.
No, that was all I just said. The end.
Nah. So here are the requirements of the job.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a level of attention to detail.
That everyone writes that in every job description ever. It means nothing.
I know. Except, it means nothing except that anyone who doesn't, I would not hire.
Sure.
I mean, if I get an email from someone that has a typo.
How do you measure someone's attention to detail?
All right, simple. If they follow the instructions that I put on the job posting and there are no misspellings in their resume or the email they sent me.
Done.
If they don't meet basically, if they don't have that, then not even
But there's
looking
no
at it.
reason to write that on the job posting.
Nah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you need to write things like not creeper.
Yeah, you should write that.
Yeah. Strong project management skills,
Okay.
which is something most people who say they have do not have.
It's such a subjective, not, measurable
Yep.
thing, so whatever.
Motivated self-starter who can overcome and work around issues independently.
Yeah. Okay.
Flexibility to travel 30% of the time. Not uncommon in tech. I
on
travel almost that percentage.
I mean, you got to be going to PAXs. You're going to be right.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, look, I was just in Turkey for a week.
Right.
I go to Turkey. I travel overseas so much for work that I had 2 sets of extra pages added to my passport, and I will still probably fill it before it expires. You have no problems working in a creative and potentially offensive environment.
Yeah, definitely not a problem.
Yeah.
It's Penny Arcade.
Flexibility, adapting to deadlines, changing schedules, priorities, the same old work well under pressure. Ability to communicate and work in a team environment.
Yep.
Again,
You
obvious.
can't work with people. You can't work. Go be an author, right? In the woods.
Have no problem appearing on camera.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of people, tech people even, complained about that one. They people we
It's
know
Penny Arcade.
said things like someone would have to pay me extra. I feel like that's a huge negative of being on camera, which I guess is just different kinds of jobs.
Don't go out in public ever.
Like
Stay
I have
in
a
your
job,
house.
right?
Never leave.
I have a tech job.
Close all your blinds.
I worked for one financial company where I was basically the guy in the back room making everything work. Now I work for a tech company where I do private lectures that are videoed for gigantic audiences on a regular basis. Like that shit comes with the territory. I consider being on camera a perk, not a negative. You could pay me less if I get to be on camera and get some personal Legend of Krauser, not just the back-end credited Legend of Krauser.
Yeah.
Okay, the messed up one, because this is kind of relevant to the tech world. If anything breaks in the middle of the night, you are expected to be on call 24/7.
No. You're supposed to have multiple people in on-call shifts so that people can have lives.
Or
right?
not everything is production critical 24/7.
Obviously.
I mean, seriously.
No, what you can't. I mean, it is Penny Arcade is this website, and all these people are living off of it. So if it goes down, you're losing money, and that feeds the people who work there, right? But if people can't read a webcomic until I get in the morning, and then at 9 o'clock in the morning they can read the webcomic again, that's not a big fucking deal. That is a very, very small deal. It's not a bank. It's not a hospital. It's not, fucking military systems. It's not the stock market. It's not something that's so disastrous. It's you can't read a webcomic for 6 hours. I can fix that in the morning. You don't have to wake me up for that, right? Just because you care about it that much, the rest of the world doesn't care about it that much.
Yep.
Let it go.
I'm going to skip all the work-life balance stuff because that's a Thursday topic, not a
Right.
Monday topic.
And you'll skip the have to live in Seattle, which is not New York.
Yeah, which is not as bad as it could be. There was the other job posting that for PAX Event Manager that requires you to live 3 weeks in Seattle and 1 week in godforsaken Connecticut
Yep.
every month.
Yep.
Yeah, not going to spend that much time in Connecticut.
Nope.
So real actual requirements. BA or BS degree in computer science or related field.
You got to have that.
That's fine. That's a fine requirement, Internet. In my personal experience, I have met very few competent tech people who don't have one of those. I'm sorry. But a lot of people know how to code or they know how to set up a server. But the difference
I know
is
people
that,
who do have that and don't know how to code.
yeah, the people who have the degrees, at least from a reasonably good school, tend to have all of the skills. They can set up a server and write code.
Mm-hmm.
A minimum of 3 years in development and project management.
That's not much.
Yeah, preferably in a professional workspace.
Basically, they don't want someone fresh out of college. They want someone who has been able to do this before because you are going to be responsible for their livelihoods effectively. So they want you to at least know what you're doing somewhat.
Yep, but also not just someone who can write code, but also someone who can manage the code itself.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two different jobs. That's why RIT had computer science and software engineering. Strong experience in PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, CSS, Apache, jQuery, Ajax. Duh.
Modern technologies,
Yeah,
relatively speaking.
Yeah, if you're a web person of any kind, those things should all be on your resume already. Strong experience in one of Java, Python, Ruby, or any other object-oriented language.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You just got to be able to write code.
Yeah, if you know Python and you do web development and you have to do something that's Java instead, you can just do it if you're a good programmer.
Of course.
Maybe you'll have to look up a few keywords and things along the way, change an IDE setup, but it's not hard. A history of running and configuring multiple server environments, including load balancers, web accelerators, caching systems, databases.
Not hard.
A history of running multiple server environments, load balancers, varnish. So
I do that.
the complaint I saw from a lot of people on the internet was that set of requirements does not describe one person. It describes a number of people. That no one person would have all those skills.
The hours describes a number of people,
And,
but the skills describes
I would say,
one
again,
person.
If you ignore the 24/7 support thing, for a shop like Penny Arcade, the number of hours of someone competent,
well, yeah,
a 40-hour work week would cover all of that.
Absolutely. I mean, I do all that.
So most of the people
I work less than 40 hours a week.
who are complaining that nobody has all those skills, including also being
I
able
have all
to
those
do
skills.
basic IT in the office, like configure the office firewall because something changed.
I have all those skills and more.
Yeah, anyone with competence in tech could do all those things and could learn the few things they don't know.
Right. There's a lot of people out there I notice because I hire people and I interview people, and they have, instead of being generally knowledgeable with computers, they know one thing. Like they did Ruby on Rails tutorials and they made web apps with Ruby on Rails, and all they did was write Ruby on Rails code and they learned Ruby on Rails, but they didn't learn anything else. So they can't, if you ask them to do the same exact thing and something else, they can't do it because they didn't learn HTTP or how the web works. They just learned Ruby on Rails.
These are the guys who know Ruby on Rails,
and
but
they
don't know how
hosted
to type apt-get install Ruby.
Yeah, they hosted it on Heroku, right, which did all the hosting work for them, so they never learned how to set up a Linux server. They did everything on their Mac, right, following a tutorial to set it up once, right, the development environment. They don't know how to set up the server environment at all because Heroku did it for them. They paid a bunch of money extra to Heroku for the more expensive hosting, and that's pretty much it, right? It's like they know exactly one thing, and they don't know any other things. They don't understand how computers work or anything about that, and they probably don't have the BS in computer science.
Yup.
So they're not good for having any sort of real job. I would never hire you for anything unless I really just needed like an army of Ruby on Rails guys who only know one thing. And that, yeah.
So again, aside from the 24/7 work-life balance thing for support, the technical requirements of this job are very minimal, actually.
Yeah,
like
that's a baby job.
Really, really low-hanging fruit. Like anyone fresh out of college should be able to do these things.
Yep.
So they
just want someone who's they're sure can do those things and isn't probably. I could have done that job out of college.
Oh, easily.
Easily.
I could not have, just 'cause I'm not really a developer. Like it would have, if I did it, it would have taken me 80-hour weeks just to learn.
They should have posted
coding.
that job when I was coming out of college. They would have gotten me. I would have been too naive and dumb and taken it.
Like when I saw that other posting they had before for PAX Event Manager, and I read it, and it literally was, this is a list of everything Rim's good at.
Mm-hmm.
Just write down the list. Rim.
Sure.
Of course, then I would have. I don't know. Imagine a weird alternate reality where fresh out of college, those two jobs got posted and we applied for them.
But I mean, I'm sure this happens in lots of other fields too, right? It's like, you never pass by a car dealer and it's like they specialize in one kind of car. And it's like, dude, if you know how cars work, shouldn't you be able to repair any car, right? But no, it's like, it's not just the ones that are on the dealership, right? It'll be like, it's like some, independent mechanic, but it's like the whole parking lot is all Benzes. It's like, we fix Benzes, that's it. And it's like, if you brought them a Ford, I'd bet they'd fuck it up. It's like, shouldn't you understand cars fundamentally, on some fundamental level, mechanics?
It might be the expertise of, they're good at working with these cars.
Sure.
Don't want to work on cars they're not good at working with.
I'm sure, but it's like, if I knew mechanics and I was a mechanic, I would be able to fix any car equally
Scott, I'll put it
well.
this way. If you brought me an HPUX server and something wasn't working, I could probably fix it.
I could definitely fix it.
But it would take me twice as long, and I'd be pissed off the whole time because it's HPUX.
It takes me just as long to Google HPUX as it takes me to Google... It actually takes me slightly longer to Google HPUX than it takes me to Google BSD because it's one more character to type.
So here's the trouble. HPUX, you won't find as much up-to-date, modern, useful information because it's not commonly used. It's old.
I could still do it.
Yeah, you could, but it'd take you longer than someone whose thing was HPUX.
We'll see.
Let's have a race. Well, I'll set up an HPUX server, and then I'll break something on it. I'll find some old suspended...
Probably just break NTP. Because that's what you do. You'd be like, oh, the clock's off by like a millisecond. I'm like, yeah, it's working. Who gives a shit about a millisecond? It's a webcomic.
So, funny story. back at RIT, one of my capstone classes was this sort of like holistic class of all the aspects of IT and system administration together into one. And one of the final labs was we had a team, and me and Katsu were on this team with some people. And we had this complex environment with some servers, some clients, a wireless access point that they connected through, and a router. And we had this whole lab set up. And we got it all working. And we had to make it secure and all that BS. And then for one of our lab practicals, we had to leave the room. And the professors broke 6 things. Mm-hmm. And we had to bring them back up as quickly as possible and document what we did.
Reimage done.
Yeah, so we came back in and we look and, oh, sure enough, our clients can't connect to the servers and one of the server daemons had crashed. So you know what we did? We rebooted everything and then it still didn't work. And then we looked and the firewall, like the config file was corrupt because of our log messages. We fixed that and then it was fine. And then we came back and we were like, yeah, we fixed it all immediately. There was only one problem and they got really mad at us, and it turned out that all the changes they had made, like they did all this really complex crap. One of the things they did is they put dummy records in the ARP table of the router so that traffic would only flow one way from certain hosts.
Okay.
The ARP table's wiped out if you just recycle the device. There was no point in troubleshooting it.
Right.
We saw it wasn't working. We just recycled it, and it was fixed.
Sure.
They ended up having to give us an A, but they were not happy.
No, I would be a lot smarter than that. Let's see, what would I do to a computer to make that would break it, but you would have a hard time finding that anything was broken? Well, there has to be a bug report or it's unfair, right? Yeah. There has to be a description of a behavior that's incorrect, right?
Yep, like...
Can't log in. It says password incorrect.
Or I run the application in the web browser and it works, except it doesn't display any of the images.
Yeah. Like, what I could do is I could be like, okay, no one can log in. And then I would, like... The Etsy password file and the shadow file would still be correct, but actually I would reconfigure it to actually be using some shadow file that's hidden somewhere, so that you'd have to find the config file that points to which shadow file is being used.
I just set I'd set the total number of file handles that you can have open to something really small, so stuff would break.
Or I would be like, the sound is only working in some apps, and what I did to you is I swapped out your kernel modules to change the sound driver or something. It'd be like, yeah, you'll never see that in a million years.
But yeah, again, not talking about the 24/7 support stuff, the work-life balance, all those things. There's a discussion to be had there. Don't get me wrong. I think the 24/7 support requirement is ridiculous bullshit.
Yep.
I refuse to be on call. The part of the reason I have the career I have is that I was done with being on call ever.
Yep. The other thing with this, right, is not only are these people sort of ridiculous saying, oh, one person can't have all these skills, it's bad if you don't have all of them, right? Like, what if someone... I know people who are system administration skills and development skills. They'd set up a web server, and it would be the most insecure, wrongly network configured thing in the universe, and then the thing would just get taken down as soon as anyone tried to attack it ever.
Yep.
And it's like, why did I just get taken down? Well, you didn't do any IP tables at all. You did SSH with passwords.
Oh, most people in the world turn off IP tables. The first thing they do.
Why does it's turned off usually by default. You have to set it up to actually add things to it.
Oh, and then they'll turn off. Oh, you know what I would do if I was going to fuck up your server? I would just turn on SE Linux and not tell you.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it's it's like there's things that you have to do. They didn't turn on automatic security updates, and then they didn't constantly maintain the server every single day with the new security updates. So this is a 0 day. Ubuntu just put out a patch. I read the patch. I know you haven't installed that patch yet. I nail you with it, whatever it is. All right? Because you haven't done it yet. Because you didn't set up auto update to install as soon as Ubuntu pushed it out.
Yep.
Good job. Because that's not something that's on by default. You got to set that up.
Now, the other hilarious thing was the speculation about salaries. Because they make this point in the thing about salaries negotiable. Quote, but you should know up front, we're not a terribly money-motivated group. We're more likely to spend less money on salary and invest that in making your day-to-day work life better.
Sure.
Now, that could reek of startup culture of, hey, you work somewhere cool, but we don't pay you. Mm-hmm. We don't know. But
I'm not motivated by money either, but there's still have to pay.
I am motivated almost entirely by money.
But you still have to pay me a lot of money. You can't not pay me a lot of money.
So I saw someone posted.
Because someone who's competent and has all those skills, they obviously didn't put any numbers, so we can't judge. They might, because they're so rich, they might be like, yeah, not a lot of money, $300K, right? Yeah, whatever.
If I was going to apply for this job, I would ask...
first of all, they must get rid of the on-call, right? So if they agree to get rid of the on-call nonsense, then you'd probably have to pay me like 150 to 200,000.
I was gonna say I would ask for 150 because I think the fringe benefits
someone
of
with
working
those
for them,
someone with those skills is rare, and that's the market value.
I would argue that someone with those skills is not that rare.
It's more rare than you think.
Yeah. Well, I guess
Go try to hire someone who has all those skills.
Those tech skills and the social skills required for a job like this.
Yeah, find someone who has all that whole package.
Yeah, kind of rare.
And especially they're geographically limiting, making
But
it
I was
even
going to
harder.
say I would only ask for 150K because the fringe benefits of a job like this actually would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But
if that was at borrowing company.
I saw a post on Twitter, a tweet that said something to the effect of, wow, anyone who applies to this should better at least ask for 50K. Jesus. Like, what? I got paid that at my internship. Like, do you people have no conception of what the tech world is like? 50K is what teachers make.
That is not enough money.
That's close to the poverty line in New York City.
That is not. Yeah, in Seattle is not much better. Right?
I know.
Where are you gonna live?
And
a hostel.
A lot of people, because the no salary number is listed here, that is people seem to just really think that this job means that they don't pay anything. I get the impression they're going to pay a reasonable amount of money. They're just not going to pay some ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
Now, I might be wrong. I don't know. But
they're probably going to pay slightly less than the market rate, right? I mean, no one...
They'll probably shoot for like 80 or 90.
Anyone who has the social and technical skills to be considered for the job, right? You're in Seattle. It's probably going to be like an ex-Amazon employee
Oh, they said they'll relocate you.
Yeah, to Seattle,
Yeah.
but it's like it's someone who's willing to live in Seattle. So it's
they're obviously going after the single nerd demographic.
Right. It's an intelligent city person is going to know what their own market value is.
Exactly.
And is only going to will smartly negotiate it down a little bit. If you're not smart enough to do that, you're probably not smart enough to be considered for the job in the first place.
Now, I don't want to get into the 24/7, any of the social stuff, but if you out there are some tech nerd and you're going to try to apply for this job, here's my advice to you. One, don't list me as a reference unless you've talked to me at least once before now. Okay, kids?
People have done that?
Yes, people have done that. I've written a lot of college recommendation letters and reference letters in the last couple of years, and I only actually write them for people who I can actually vouch for. So those of you who got letters from me, it's because I actually have some respect for you. Those of you who I didn't write them for, it's because I had no idea who you were. So if you think that you can list people like us because we lecture at Penny Arcade, at the Penny Arcade Expo, unless we know who you are, that's not going to help.
Yeah,
Two,
I can't. I'm going to recommend you. I don't know who you are.
Two, ask for the salary you think you need. Notice how they didn't say what a salary is. That's common in tech jobs.
Ask for more.
Ask for what you think you need.
Plus
10 or 15K. I mean, I made a big mistake when I applied to my first job in the financials.
I could have made a lot more money if I would have asked for more monies in the olden days.
I asked when I got that first job for that broker dealer. I asked for 60K. I was like, yeah, I need at least 60K, and they were like, sure, done, you're hired.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck.
Shit.
I fucked up.
Fucked up.
I fucked up.
Fucked up.
Yeah, then a month later, they're like, okay, yeah, you're good. And then they raised it to 90. They were like, yeah, you really asked for the wrong amount of money, kid. So don't make the mistake I made. If you ask for the amount of money that's reasonable and you are skilled and you don't get the job, then you didn't want the job. You don't want a job that'll pay you less than you actually need. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
There's a party at this girl's girl's house. I think we're cool because with stamps I always help her out. She is fine, but her friends are kinda this and thatness. But with me I better help her find her inner catness. So I dance with my manager Vance, asking if I could just get a friendly payment in advance. He blows me off, so I scoff, throw my smock, check the clock, take it off, check my wad, feeling soft. All I got is 5:45 and it's 5:45. Gotta get a Whopper and a 40 right. Well, I got 5:45 and it's 5:45.
Character, if you type an I that's a lowercase I in English, it'll have the dot by default. So if you take that in Turkish and then uppercase it, it'll still have the dot. But you don't want the dotted uppercase I in that case, most likely. You want the non-dotted uppercase I, especially if it's English just being typed in Turkish. There's also issues with passwords and hashes.
That's the problem is someone on a Turkish keyboard put in their Turkish lowercase I when they meant to put in an English lowercase I.
Yep, or the other way around. You put an English lowercase I that gets upcased to a uppercase I with a dot, which doesn't exist in English.
It's a different letter, right? You just pretend it like that lowercase Turkish I.
But this is
just
why
like
there's the problem. In English,
big,
we have lowercase I with a dot
and
and uppercase I without a dot. So we have like half and half is our problem.
Anyway.
But yeah, that's how it was in Turkey. It was awesome. And the Lions won the Thanksgiving Day game for the first time in my life that I can remember that I cared.
Doesn't matter.
Matters a lot.
Doesn't matter.
Matters a lot. If you've ever lived in Detroit, it matters a lot.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, so we got some news. Got news. We're back. It's Geeknights news.
I think I closed my tab with my news. Let me remember what it was.
All right, so RMS, as in Richard Stallman.
Why are we talking about him?
Has decided that
he's the opposite of relevant.
Has proven that Bitcoin has made it. And you know how we know Bitcoin has made it? Because Richard Stallman is calling for an anonymous alternative to Bitcoin.
Okay.
He doesn't tell anyone how. Or
he doesn't know how.
Of course not. But basically, Bitcoin has become useful enough to where he is calling for an alternative to it because of its flaw. The flaw being that it's not actually anonymous, which is funny because most people who talk about Bitcoin seem to laud how anonymous it is, not knowing that it's actually the opposite of that. And the point of it is not that they speak Turkish.
I didn't know Turkish was a different language.
Wow.
How is it different?
It's completely different. It's more based on Greek than it is based on anything else.
I did not know this.
Wow, really?
Okay.
You listen to 12 Byzantine rulers. You don't know.
How much do you think I remember? I can't even remember. I can't remember anything.
All right, so a few highlights then. I saw the chain, as in that chain from that podcast, the one that hung across the Bosphorus that kept the Ottomans at bay until they eventually took the tower and took it down. The chain is just there in the museum. And I think the funniest thing was I saw all these Egyptian artifacts. And for a second, I'm like, what? Why is there so much Egypt? Oh, right. Romans conquered Egypt. Greeks conquered Egypt. This is all pillage.
Anthony and Cleopatra?
Yeah, and I think older stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the artifacts that Rome and parts of Rome have laying around, like in their museums today, are things that the Romans themselves looted from places they conquered more than 1,000 years ago. These are things that were conquered, taken, looted, and put in museums before so-called Jesus wasn't born. I just find that awesome and interesting. But no, my trouble with Turkey is that I would like to learn Turkish because I go there enough and the business is big enough.
But they mostly speak English.
Well, everyone in the industry I engage with speaks English pretty well, to very well, to better than a lot of Americans.
Hello, my friend. How are
and
you?
A lot of people in the street, at least in the urban centers, also speak English. So as a result, I don't have any chance to really use...
Do they speak English even to each other, or only they are able to speak English but don't speak it as their primary language?
They will never speak English to each other.
Okay.
But they speak it very well when they're speaking with me or when I'm in the room. But all the books I can find to teach myself Turkish are ancient and teach like Turkish from the 1920s like no one speaks
Why
it
don't you
today.
get rip off Rosetta Stone?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to pirate Rosetta Stone.
Why don't you do the thing that Emily does with the Skype and with the Turkish person?
Anonymous, but that it's intrinsic. This article, just if you want to see what Slashdot looked like in 1994, this article from today is basically Slashdot in 1994. It's got all the keywords: RMS, alternative to whatever hot technology thing
Does it have
is.
a picture of Bill Gates' face with the Borg on it?
It's actually got a picture of a Bitcoin because they have a Bitcoin category because there's so many articles about Bitcoin. Now, maybe we do need an anonymous equivalent of Bitcoin because cash is increasingly difficult to use by tech nerdy people, and intrinsic currencies are useful for the segment of the population that can't use credit cards, aka teenagers who are increasingly spending a lot of money online and have no good way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Anonymous ones would be good for the black market, the internet underground, buying drugs. Bitcoin is kind of good for that too, but you have to be technologically savvy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, my real news is that Amazon announced the kind of thing that's usually a, I don't know, April Fool's joke.
I thought it was an April Fool's joke at first, or a parody.
And I had heard, there have been rumors about this for a long time. And I assume this is the kind of thing that you'd see on one of those TV shows back when they were like, What's New in Tech with Soledad O'Brien on TV back in the day, like Square whatever TV. But I forget what all those channels were called. But Amazon actually announced that they're going to have little drones that will deliver packages. And they actually have come a long way, and they've got working prototypes. Like, this is not as far away as people think it is.
I just see like two things I'm seeing really often lately, right? The one thing is where people like they misunderstand where technology currently is in both directions, right? It's like they'll underestimate what they're capable of doing right now realistically, and they'll also overestimate in different areas.
Case in
right?
point, Google Glass. People think it's like this real-world overlay device that shows you this heads-up display that fully fills your vision like a
people have no real.
It's Monday, December 2nd, 2013. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. We're back tonight. We're talking about that Penny Arcade job posting.
Rim's idea.
Let's do this. Now, I should note, we're going to try to avoid talking about any of the non-tech aspects of it.
Because they're obvious.
Yeah, they're obvious. The ones that aren't obvious.
You shouldn't work zillion hours a week.
Yeah, well, the only exception would be if work is also life, but
that's a sad person.
Well, what if my job, Scott, is to hang out on the beach and relax?
That
and
is my job.
I'm putting in extra hours for that job.
I'm gonna murder you and take your job.
Yeah. So, but in that case,
or you're gonna put in a good word for me, and I'll get hired, and you'll get a signing bonus.
I spent a lot of late nights working on Geeknights when I could have been asleep. Back in the day when it would take us a couple hours to actually put a show together after we recorded it, but I digress. That's in the second part of the show. But yeah, I was in Istanbul all last week, ironically in Turkey over Thanksgiving, so I did not have any turkey.
Is that really ironic?
Nah, it's ironic. That's why I said ironic with an ironic lilt, perhaps.
Sure.
But everyone I talked to who knew that I was going to be in Turkey over Thanksgiving had to basically make some observation along those lines of, you're going to be in Turkey instead of
having been
Turkey.
to Turkey, what, 3 times now?
More than that.
I mean, the Turkish people know that the name of their country in English is the name of a bird.
So.
Right? They must know that.
They do.
And what do they think about that?
They don't think about it.
Okay.
They do eat turkeys on Christmas, which they celebrate, even though they're mostly Muslim.
What do they call a turkey?
I don't know, because everyone I do business with...
What is the Arabic word for turkey?
So they don't speak Arabic.
I thought they speak Arabic.
Because that service did not have Turkish.
Really?
There are not a lot of English to Turkish language resources because there's not a lot of interest in the English-speaking world in learning Turkish, sadly.
Why don't you find the person who is, like, translating Turkish books or something and ask them if there's something you can do?
Yeah, I'll just pay them to come over and teach me Turkish.
No, I mean, like, go to the Turkish bookstore, right, and find, like, the most popular fucking book, right? And it's probably going to have an English translation. Look up in the credits who did the translation, and then find the person on the internet and call them.
Well, I think I'm going to probably start by pirating Rosetta Stone, and I'm still doing some research. I found a couple of books. The problem is the books are
Why don't you look at the person in the credits of the Turkish Rosetta Stone who made it?
Maybe. Those people may or
They'll
may
probably just tell you to use Turkish Rosetta Stone, but still.
But I only learn words related to food and coffee because they have coffee and tea and stuff like that constantly. It's awesome.
Usually the first thing people learn are when they're learning a new language late in life is swear words.
Yeah.
But you probably haven't learned any.
Nope, I haven't learned any. I've overheard, I think, what were a few swear words.
Fuck you in Turkish.
Nope. I can order black Turkish coffee by getting sade coffee.
Okay.
As opposed to orto coffee, which is Turkish coffee with a little bit of sugar in it. And the word for tea is chai.
Oh, that's a hard word.
It's spelled differently. It's spelled C-A-Y. But I can read Turkish. I can read Turkish words and know how to pronounce them, which actually took me a little while to figure out.
I could do that with Hebrew when I was like in kindergarten.
They use a lot of diacritics, like way more than I'm used to, and they have a much bigger impact on the words. Like, also, the most vexing thing is that there's I with a dot and without a dot, and they're different. So there can be an uppercase I with a dot and uppercase I without a dot.
All right.
Yeah. That also causes problems in Java and other languages if you don't handle it properly. Because there's a lowercase I with the dot, so it gets uppercased into an uppercase dotted I that doesn't display in most Western character sets, thus
Why
problems.
Your text editor UTF-8?
Yeah, but even then, which